The deal. There's two kinds, two flavors, if you will, of media. One is relational, one is transactional. The primary difference is the relational media tells emotional stories that reach out to consumers and connect with them. Can anybody think of a good example of relational media? What medium would you use to tell a great story, a good emotional story? What medium reaches out to consumers and tries to grab them? Television. Television. That's a good one. Radio. You guys have heard of Paul Harvey and his radio show, The Rest of the Story? People were hanging on his words for 40 years. You know, after the commercial, I'll tell you the rest of the story. And then he does. That's great relational advertising, right? TV and radio tell great stories. And as a consequence, they make emotional connections with people. That's relational media. Now, you learned in Josh's class that there's two different kinds of consumers, right? There's people in relational phase and people in transactional phase, right? Remember that? So the deal is, if you are a consumer in relational phase, then the best way to make a connection with you is through a relational media, like radio or TV. Why don't people who are in relational phase need transactional details? They don't need it, right? They don't need that information. I don't need to know what it costs if I'm not ready to buy it, right? Because if I'm not ready to buy it now, what do I know about the cost later? Won't it be different? Like with computers, it'll probably be less. But with other things, it'll probably be more. There's no point in memorizing the price of something I don't need now, because when the time comes, I'm going to find out the price, right? Where am I going to find out? Right, through transactional media. Transactional media is really good at details. And transactional media just kind of sits there and it waits for you to reach out to them. So if I wanted to take this group to an Italian restaurant, and I'm not familiar with this area, I'd go to the internet and I'd type in Italian restaurants. And then I'd get a list. That's transactional media. Internet search is really good at this. I'd get a list of websites, right? I'd click on a website. Websites are really good at this. If you go to a website for a car dealer, what would you expect to see?
Inventory.
All their cars, all the prices of the cars. What other information might be on that website? What's that?
Phone numbers, address.
Phone numbers, the address. Financing. Warranties, maybe? Here's what else you might see. You see the name of every employee that you might need to contact. Here's the general manager, sales manager, finance manager, used car sales manager, right? All their email addresses. All the stuff that you might need if you were ready to transact some business. That's what transactional media is good at. People don't really go to TV or radio to learn stories about advertisers either. They go to TV or radio to be entertained by the programming, right? And then you're watching Grey's Anatomy and along comes a commercial for Volkswagen and it's a little kid dressed as Darth Vader and he's trying to make things happen and then his dad messes with him by pressing the remote and the lights go on in the car and the kid thought he did something. And we all remember that because it's a cool ad. What's a Volkswagen cost? You don't know, right? Did they tell you in the ad? They didn't tell you in the ad. You know where to get one? Because they told you in the ad?
No, I drive by.
Because you know where Volkswagen dealers are. Did they need to tell you in the ad? Now, it wouldn't even make any sense to try to tell you in the ad because the ad is a national ad and there's hundreds, thousands maybe Volkswagen dealerships. They could never list them all. Where are they listed? They're listed on the internet. Now, if you wanted to buy a Volkswagen, would you know that they'd be listed on the internet? Would you go to the internet to find out where you needed to go to look at a Volkswagen? So when we go out and we see advertisers and they say, we need results from you people in order to continue to justify these expenditures, what results are they talking about? What's that?
They're expecting transactional results.
That's right. They want sales. They want leads. Right? How are they going to know if they got leads? So people, okay, so the phone rang. people came in and people went online, all measurable things, right? But that's not enough usually for them. What else do they want to know?
They saw the ad.
Yeah, they want to know, how'd you hear about us? Do people, when they go to buy something, remember the first time that they started to make an impression about somebody? And I can illustrate it very quickly. You're driving down the interstate and you're hungry. And you see a sign that at the next exit there's a Chick-fil-A and there's Bob's House of Mandarin. Those are on the interstate signs. You got the Chick-fil-A and you got Bob's House of Mandarin. Okay? Now I don't know where you are, but you're in an area that you're not familiar with, right? You're driving to go somewhere and you're in an area right this second you're not that familiar with, and you'd never heard of Bob's House of Mandarin. But you've heard of Chick-fil-A, you like Chick-fil-A, so which one do you choose? Chick-fil-A. So you drive, you take the exit, and you go into Chick-fil-A. Now they're doing a little marketing survey. So the young lady at the front counter says, what do you have? And you tell her, and then she says, oh, by the way, what brought you in today? And you say, oh, I saw that interstate sign. That's what brought me in today. And they've got a checklist. They've got a form. They got to check. They got interstate sign, radio, TV, money mailer, whatever, right? So she checks interstate sign. Well, how many times do you think that interstate sign is getting checked that day? Check, 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 check. New page, check, 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 check. Post the pages, post, check, 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 check. So they have a meeting. They have a meeting at the end of the month. They get all the people together, they get the managers together, they get the employees together, and the manager says, I'm doing a little information for the marketing department. I want to figure out what kind of marketing is working. So in your experience, folks, what sort of marketing has been working? And they pull out the pieces of paper, and what do they say?
We don't need to advertise, all we need to do is have that.
That interstate sign is kicking butt. We need more interstate signs. Just put a whole row of them up there because that thing it's on fire. Meanwhile, Bob's House of Mandarin, they're doing the same thing. They got a section, they got a page, right? And so you go in, they say, what brings you in today? And people are saying things like money mailer coupon, radio ad, TV ad, don't know, friend told me, I've been here before. He gets everybody together, Bob gets everybody together, and he says, I'm doing a little study on the marketing, trying to figure out what we should be spending more money on. Tell me what's working, and tell me what's not. And they say, I'll tell you what's not working, it's what? That interstate sign stinks. That is a waste of money. Nobody comes in here and says they saw the interstate sign. So how is it possible that Chick-fil-A is here and Bob's House of Mandarin is here? One of them thinks the interstate sign is gold and the other thinks it's horrible, doesn't work. Is there something wrong with the medium of interstate signs? No. Interstate signs are a transactional medium. Okay? It tells you the location. It tells you nothing else about the place. So for you to decide that you want to go to one versus the other, then you have to have known about the place prior to seeing the sign. Where would you have known about the place? What impression would you have gained earlier and from where? How would you get that impression?
From any kind of marketing or advertising, television.
Right. From relational. The relational advertising they did prior to the time you saw the transactional message was critical to the success of the transactional message, wasn't it? Now, Bob's House of Mandarin is doing fine, but they're doing fine with local people who've had the chance to see local advertising, not the interstate transactional advertising, right? So while the transactional advertising is great for Chick-fil-A, it's a waste of money for Bob. Bob could have figured that out before he put the sign up, if he'd just come to this class. But he didn't. Now he doesn't have to, because now you guys will be able to go out there and say, well, wait a minute. Consumers interact with media in different ways, right? We need to help. We need to kind of figure this out. Now, do people need just this?
No.
Otherwise, you wouldn't know that at that exit there was a Chick-fil-A, right?
Right.
So they need this. Do they need just this? No, otherwise you wouldn't know Chick-fil-A is good. Need both. Advertisers need both transactional and relational media as part of their marketing plan.